Hi, my name's Maxine Roper. I'm co-founder of Connecting Food with Stefano Volpi. We both have a background of around 20 years in major international food and beverage companies, Nestlé, Sara Lee, Danone, Andros, and also in the upstream part of the food supply chain with Avril, which was Sophie Proteol before. And this experience gave us very valuable insights into how consumer attitudes towards food are evolving, and also how the way that food is produced today and verified today needs to undergo a radical change. So that's why we created Connecting Food. Today, typically, there are two models that exist for food production. On the one hand, product standardization, low costs, which you could say is typically a model developed more in the US. And on the other hand, product differentiation quality, which is more of a model developed in Europe on a big scale. And we're Connecting Food. We think that there is the European model of food production has a huge potential. But at the same time, if we want to feed the vast majority of people and not just a handful of happy few that can pay top prices for fairly niche quality products, this model also needs to undergo a huge radical change. And that's what we want to share with you today, our vision on how we want to accompany that change. So first of all, why do we think there's a huge potential for this model, for product differentiation and quality? If we start with the consumer, consumers are paying more and more attention, we know, to the quality of food that they're eating and where it comes from. When they choose food, they want transparency. They're demanding transparency now. They want information about how it's been produced, where does it come from. And this trend will actually escalate. It's not going to go away as millennials and future generations, they're actually obviously born with this kind of reflex to look up on the internet or actually ask on social networks other people's opinions on food. We saw this week also that scandals, they come about very quickly. There was Ponzani and Lus du Cru this week within 24 hours. Everybody knew about a huge scandal in their egg business, and 48 hours later they actually had to react very quickly. And so secondly, from a brand's point of view, food retailers and brands, they're directly impacted by this big revolution, and they're facing a huge risk to their brand reputation if they don't radically change the way the food quality is controlled and in the whole of the supply chain. Today, only 5% of food that's sold is actually verified through audits, which are carried out after the food has been dispatched and a couple of times a year, and may even have been consumed, which is one of the major problems leading to all these scandals. Which is dangerous for consumers, and it's also costly and extremely dangerous for brands and retailers for the brand reputation. And that's also the reason why there's such a big impact on consumer confidence in brands, and obviously this actually regenerates the fact that they look up on through third parties, and they trust third parties more than they actually trust the brands today. So to actually regain consumer confidence in food, brands and retailers, they really need to prove with facts that they keep the promises that they make to the consumer every day, all the time. Thirdly, very important, farmers. The farm, we believe, is the crucial point in food production, because this is actually where food is really created. It's the place where a seed becomes a tomato or it becomes wheat, where pork or eggs or milk is actually produced. After that, it's just transformed. So the quality of the farmer's work is extremely important, and good quality, we believe, should be rewarded. And so this very important link on the food production chain is actually looking to be more connected to the end market, the demand, and we really believe that's a very important point. Connecting food, how do we believe this revolution could come about? Well, it's through digital technology, of course. We actually called our startup Connecting Food because we connect the different links along the food production chain to the end market demand, and also because we use connected technology to do that. So what do we do? Connecting Food, we've developed a digital solution allowing brands and retailers to certify in real time food compliance for 100% of their products compared to end product specifications. So this is to solve the key issue for brands and retailers that we were talking about just now, to be able to keep the promises that they actually make to the consumer all the time and reinforce their brand reputation and develop their business. We decided to change the system by moving from audits to real-time certification, and that changes a huge amount of things. Because when you're in audits, we said there's like 5% of products that actually have been verified. When we talk to the quality directors in branded food companies, they say it's a lot less than 5% in most cases, because it's very expensive to send an auditor. An auditor can only check a few days' production on a random basis through the last year or maybe even the year and a half's production. So 5% of products are audited, often after they've been dispatched because it's on past productions, which leads to very costly product recalls. It's dangerous as well, obviously, and penalties for having made a mistake, which quite often human errors, a long time after they've actually occurred. What we want to move to is 100% of products verified. Maybe we won't go straight to 5% to 100%. It's a huge jump. It will take a while to do it. But we believe we can go from 5% to 60%, 70%, and then higher over time, because it's actually checked in real time. And this will actually reduce food waste along the whole of the supply chain as well. Because if you know in real time that there's an error, it can actually be corrected rather than going all the way through the food chain and being taken off at the final stage of the production chain and thrown in the bin. It's obviously gone through a lot of very high value processes and then it's thrown away. So we can avoid that. And also an important and very important point as well, coming back to the farmers, we believe that farmers should be rewarded for quality rather than having the same price for everything, which tends to be the way that farmers are paid today. If they do excellent work or if they do average work, it's still the same price that they're actually paid. So how does this work from a technical point of view? Information concerning a supplier's production is actually collected all the way along the value chain. Each supplier, the information goes into the system using different tools. It could be IoTs, it could be RFID tags or other digital solutions. In fact, this information exists today because they have to store this information for the audits that are going to be carried out later on, maybe a year later, maybe 6 months later, maybe 3 weeks later. But we put the information directly into the system, which is immediately compared with the end product specifications. If it's compliant, the product can go through to the next stage on the value chain. If it's not compliant, it doesn't go through. And all information is certified and stored on the blockchain to make sure it's unfalsifiable in the future. There's also one point which is very important as well, is that if we use the blockchain, we can also reward farmers in return for their data, because data is valuable. I think we've been talking about it quite a lot all day today. And data has value. With our business model, we actually sell our solution to brands and retailers, and part of that money which is through a SaaS system, which means it's on a cloud and downloaded for the end user who has the product specifications. Part of that subscription will go back to the farmer, and every time that he sends the data into the system, there is a smart contract which will actually send a micro payment, a small fee, back to the farmer. So it's a little bit like solar panels on housings of cows and different farming buildings, which every day when they produce electricity, the electricity goes into the system and it's bought back by, in France, EDF. Similar kind of system. Right from the beginning, we've been working with all the suppliers all the way along the value chain, because it's obviously very important to actually make sure that they're motivated by this system. So when we were defining the concept and the product development process, the upstream suppliers have actually confirmed they are interested in participating for several reasons. Obviously, the first reason that protects brand's reputation, that's more of a benefit for the brand. But there are 4 benefits for all the suppliers along the system. We just talked about rewarding farmers for data. Also, there is a connection to the end market, because the system is actually visible. All the information that is sent in is visible by the end user, which is the brand owner, which encourages also communication between the end brand owner and the producer, of which there is the farmer, but also the other suppliers. Also, the system showcases supplier performance, because the excellent performance will show up, having, typically a green light 80% of the time, or a red light 80% of the time. It's not the same performance, so which is very positive for each supplier. And obviously, it reduces waste all the way along the system. We've also built strategic partnerships with top players in technology. Connecting Food is actually moving into the IBM scale zone, because we want to make sure that the digital solution is functional on a European scale. We'll be using the Hyperledger blockchain and the IBM cloud. But we're also working with the French Central Atomic Agency to develop different parts of the system, IoT, machine learning, because obviously when you're in nuclear energy or nuclear power stations, you need to be able to predict a certain amount of things before they actually happen, because it's rather dangerous. So we're actually working with them on the blockchain, but also on the rest of the system as well, to be able to spot inconsistent patterns in supplier data, for example, which can actually also reduce potential fraud that can happen today. And today we're working on different use cases in 2017, which we're setting up for the second half of the year, working with retailers to certify own label brands and upstream actors in the supply chain to develop the system on animal product value chains. And this will take us to the end of the year, beginning of 2018. And that's where we're planning, as we were saying, we're in the IBM scale zone, so the use cases that are developed can actually be the basis of the final industrial engine of the product for afterwards in 2018 in different countries in Europe. We're planning on starting in the southern Europe countries, France, Spain and Italy, but there are other countries that are interested as well. So our ambition is to change the face of food certification in Europe by 2020, because we want to use the new technologies to convert food quality into a strategic asset for brands and retailers, to protect their brand reputation and to obviously to deliver better products to the consumer, the end consumer.
Thank you very much for your presentation. The questions? Mike, perhaps? One? No?
Could you please explain a little more about the smart contracts? I mean, it looks like you're going to have a number of them. Could you go into more detail on that, please?
Well, we've chosen to do the smart contracts just on one part of a production chain. We've chosen the farmer's side, which is a link that we're explaining, which is very important. And so the overall way it will work is basically a simple code which will actually say that when the farmer sends in his data, we will actually compensate and reward him by sending a micropayment through the blockchain, in fact, so it will be on a cryptocurrency. And at the end of the year or after 3 months, 6 months, it will go into a wallet, a virtual wallet, which can be converted either into euros or can actually be used for other advantages that the farmer might decide to have in the future.
And in the future of connecting food, we will use a smart contract also to reward data, as you said before, because you can imagine that we will pump a lot of data with this kind of tools. So we'll put that in a data lake, and the blockchain will allow you to have the address of the data, so you can put it in a, let's say, an encrypted cloud stock. And then you can decide to use this information from this farmer or this factory, etc., and to reward them because you use it, and to do that through the smart contract. So that's the two ways in which we'll use the smart contract. Yeah. Okay.
You know as well as I am that at the end, the consumer will decide if there is more value in the food coming from connecting food or not. And so how did you, what are the devices you planned to make this real to consumer, or is it not visible at all at the consumer level?
Yeah, we're actually a partner for brands and retailers, in fact, so we won't actually communicate to the consumer. We would have all the information that if the brand or the retailer decides, I'd like to communicate this information proactively to the consumer, they can do. They can say, X percentage of my products have been tested and they are totally compliant and they're tested every single day, etc., if they decide to. But we won't actually do it. We're remaining B2B. There may be some brands that would decide to do it proactively. Some brands may just want to do it defensively. If they get, for example, a problem on the product, and they can say, well, we've done all that we could possibly do to control everything, and this is proof that that we control everything in our supply chain, and we do the maximum amount of things. But unfortunately, there was something that actually went wrong. So they could actually use it defensively and or use it proactively, but that's up to them.
Yeah. You can also use it directly, not connecting food, but I mean the brand or the retailer, but you have to change the way to communicate to the consumer, because you can't print it on the pack, because, well, it could be good today, not tomorrow. So it's real-time certification. So you need to find out new ways of use it, I don't know, on the website or other application on mobile, etc., etc. So we would like to work with brand retailers to build up a new way to communicate. So to replace, in one word, the advertising, typical advertising, or what you put on your pack.
And maybe it's not complete, it's just another information, but we have actually had brands and retailers that have said to us, what is interesting as well is the fact that it's been certified in a specific way. If they want to export, for example, to another country where the certification is not the same as the European certification, the data actually exists and can be converted into another system testing other criteria, which are actually the criteria of that country, which is quite interesting because some brands or retailers that export to for example, to Asia or America, they have to actually ask like Asian auditors to come into the upstream part of the production chain, which is a pain for everybody because they've already been audited once, then they have to be audited again by foreign and other people that don't necessarily speak the language, and this system will actually mean that it can be done digitally, in fact. So it can actually be kind of translated into their criteria, which is quite handy for certification in different continents as well.
Thank you. Another question? Yeah. It's better now.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I missed something. It's just to know who will own the data and if the existing organizations like cooperatives or farmers, producers organization will be suitable to manage and to implement this kind of certification.
One of the principles of the blockchain is to own your own data. I mean, you keep the property of the data. You don't stock the information on the blockchain. You just stock the the address, let's say, what the information is, and the results of the hash function. So if you put your information encrypted in a kind of cloud, then we will stock on the blockchain the address and what you put there in your own coffre-fort. And, well, if you change something inside, well, you will have a problem in the results of the age. So you keep the property, but we know where the information are and which information you put in your coffre. You see the point? The safe. Yeah, thank you. Well, so that's why we will use the smart contracts in order to use your data later on.
But you keep the key, in fact.
Because you keep the key. You have, like in a bank, you have 2 keys.
And if you don't want us, for example, to use the data afterwards, you just switch off the authorization for us to have access to that data. If you're because Stefano just now was talking about a second stage, which is a data lake, but with this system, obviously the data as it, today the data is produced and it's shown to the auditor physically a year later. So the data has to be used to compare to the end product specification to be certified, but then you own the data after that. And if later on we wanted to reuse the data, you would actually authorize us or not authorize us, and if it's authorized and we use it, you get micropayments for every time it's used.
What's owned by Connecting Food is the result of this certification.
It's compliant or it's not compliant.
Yeah, it's our data. So we keep the property of that. You see the point?
You keep the property of data, but if you are not able to process the data and to use your data, in which measure and which extent you own your data, even if formally you own the data. So this is why I speak about the organizations like cooperatives or this kind of partner who can be the partners that you have to work with in order to make farmers able to work with you in confidence, to be sure that they master the process. So I don't know, but it's...
Yeah. So you mean the supplier sending the information into the system, how he knows that we won't keep a copy of the data? That's your point?
How they are sure that all this knowledge they can use this knowledge which is created, because if they don't have the ability to use this knowledge, even if they are formally the property of data.
Yeah. We are working on a foundation in order to reassure the supplier, etc., that the data will be will stay property of the supplier.
Another question? So thank you very much for your presentation. And Marine?